Smello, fragrance nerds. How are you? Are you well? Feeling good? Smelling good? Good. Glad to hear it. Welcome back to another episode of Making Sense Make Sense, the podcast that's all about demystifying the wonderful world of fragrance in a way that is accessible and fun. This is a snobbery-free zone where you'll find absolutely no gatekeeping or BS. Fragrance is for everyone, and we're here to democratize it. I am Thomas Dunkley, and I'm your host. I am the smelliest guy in town, and I'm here to bring you into my stinky, stinky little world. Don't like smells? Well, then we don't take kindly to your kind around here. The door is to your left, or to your right. I actually don't know what room you're in. It could be anywhere. I'm not watching you. You'll be pleased to know. I joke. All are welcome here. Everybody's welcome here. This is a lovely, nice little space. I even have Gomez, my little pug here. I say he's a pug. We adopted him. I have a sneaking suspicion that he is about 70% Chihuahua, because that is the attitude that I get from my boy. He is chewing on a squishmallow currently, so if you can hear little puggy, chuggy noises, that is him. 'Tis not me. Hello, welcome. Another episode. This is episode 3 of the new season. Episode 3 of season 3. Welcome. Hi, how you doing? My guest today is a truly fascinating man. Some words to describe him are stylish, scented, Scottish, and street savvy. That's right. I'm of course referring to Robin James, the man behind the website, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok man for himself. But he's also the founder of haircare and fragrance brand Anforh. Now, Robin knows about fragrance. He spent a lot of his time talking about it, and you'll likely have seen his street scents videos where he goes out onto the streets of London, accosts rather stylish, interesting men of the city, and interviews them about their favourite fragrances. He sees fragrance as an undeniable part of a man's style, and I think he has such a fantastic way of approaching scent, making it accessible and evocative. He also has his own brand, Anforh, which started solely as a haircare brand, but now has 3 beautiful fragrances inspired by his native Scotland. Now, I've known Robin for a number of years, having always bumped into him at fragrance events. I feel like there's lots of dinners and lunches where I've sat in his vicinity, but I've really got to know him over the last 12 months and consider him a friend. Now, when you love fragrance and your friend launches a fragrance brand, there's always this fear that maybe the scents won't be good and you'll have to pull a good poker face. Now, being strongly neurodivergent, poker faces are not my strong suit, so that's always a huge anxiety for me. But I needn't have worried with Robin because, of course, he has a fantastic understanding of fragrance, but also a really good sense of what is commercial. So, of course, his collection of scents, Air, Kissed and Sawn, is a beautiful capsule wardrobe that balances accessibility and wearability with rich storytelling and innovative olfactive design. All 3 are beautiful. I didn't have to do a poker face. I was very interested in all of them. Massive sigh of relief. Wonderful. Now, in this episode, I talked with Robin all about his career, including his origins in television, what he's learned from his scented street interviews, and how he built his wonderful fragrance brand. So let's just jump straight in after a very brief word from our sponsor. This episode of Making Sense Make Sense is sponsored by Carium. I read somewhere that there were close to 10,000 fragrance launches in 2025. Never before has there been so much perfume, which is a great thing, let's be honest. We love perfume. But this means it can be hard to hear through all that olfactory noise, and now, with so much choice, it can be hard to find a new signature scent. Like me, Carium believe that scent is complex and deeply personal, which is why I've joined them as brand ambassador. The overwhelming choice out there often makes the search for fragrance intimidating. Carium seeks to solve this and works as the scent sommelier to help decode and deepen customers' connections to fragrance. This is a unique experience where the scent sommelier helps people discover fragrances intuitively, guided by their own words, emotions, and memories, and removing distractions such as branding, packaging, or preconceptions, focusing purely on the scent and the customer's personal response. You don't just choose a fragrance, the words you use, your personal associations, all drive the experience thanks to an AI model that has learned from thousands of real descriptions to understand the language of scent. From niche fragrance boutiques to partnerships with the world's most renowned brands, Carium continues to demonstrate its ability to reach diverse audiences by supporting and enhancing customers' fragrance selection experiences. The data shows a 139% increase of store visitors after introduction of Carium in the scent selection process. And the data also reveals a 287% increased conversion rate in store. In London, you can now experience it in iconic settings, such as Selfridges or in boutique perfumeries, making this sophisticated, sensory, intelligent fragrance discovery accessible. So why not pop in to Selfridges or Parfum La Danse in London to see how Carium's innovative AI solution can help you cut through all that olfactory noise and discover your next signature scent. Carium will also be at Barnes Fragrance Fair on the 16th of May, and hopefully we will see you there. Robin, thanks so much for joining me on Making Sense Make Sense.
Very much for having me. I'm excited for this.
I think most people who are listening will probably know who you are, but I think they might not know that you started out in television. So you're known for your fragrance, your style and grooming content, but TV was where you kind of cut your teeth. How did you get into television and what made you pivot away from that into content?
Yeah, so that's going back 10 years. So I went full-time in this in Man for Himself 10 years ago, January the 5th, 2016. But I started in TV, and the reason I got into TV was I did a postgrad because we'd gone into a recession, and I thought I'm not going to get a job here. So I graduated in politics and history, and I'd done some radio, some university radio. I loved sort of the performance element of TV and media. So I decided to apply for a postgrad in broadcast journalism. So I ended up in London at City University and did a year course in broadcast journalism. So TV, radio, new media, aka this. And then I got my first job with Channel 4 on a reality TV show. The plan was always I say plan very loosely. The plan was to go into hard news. Like I wanted to work in a newsroom and do a sort of real job and tackle world affairs. But I actually really landed on my feet with my first job. It was a show called 7 Days, which was taking over the slot of Big Brother. And it was made by Studio Lambert, who are the people behind The Traitors, Gogglebox, like amazing shows. And it had social media at the heart of that. So I'd applied for this interactive reporter, essentially me with this tiny little flip cam that I would wander around the streets of Notting Hill talking to the main characters of the show. So I'd kind of moved off the hard news idea and was now in the world of entertainment. Then from there, I worked for Sky Living and I did some red carpet reporting. And that was very much me pushing myself onto those things because I liked shooting and reporting and editing. So I did some red carpet reporting. I did fashion weeks. And then I went to NBC Universal and did some digital marketing. And then laterally I was at ITV. And I sort of did a bit of everything at ITV. And I loved it. Did I love it? That's maybe a lie. I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the opportunities it gave me, and I loved the brand names. You know, to work for ITV was incredible, and you really felt like part of a machine. But I wasn't getting to do everything, and that's what this as a job provides me with. It's you know, I'm doing everything from washing the dishes to making the videos, and you know, working with a team, a small team, but a great team. So that's a long way to say, yes, I started in TV and now I am here.
But you can kind of see that in the content that you do, that you have a very journalistic, polished style to what you do. And I think you kind of sort of pioneered that in the sort of grooming space. So do you think you wouldn't have been able to do the content that you do if you hadn't have had that background?
Yes, yes and no. The yes is I understood how to shoot, and I understood how to storytell, and I understood how to edit, which I think was great. And I wasn't shy in doing all of that and doing all of that myself. And I think that's given me a huge foundation for what I now do. But I remember when I first started, I actually had to sort of get rid of some of the polish because, especially back then, you know, in April 2013, when I published my first YouTube video, everything was very raw. You know, these days things are, you know, beautiful and the production value on things is wild. But back then it had to feel a little raw. So I remember kind of having to take off some of those beautiful cutaways or the B-roll and just kind of do those hard cuts. But yeah, I feel like it definitely gave me an understanding of how to construct a story and how to tell a story, and also a kind of understanding that you serve an audience and you don't serve brands. And that's something that I always have in my head. You know, it's about serving an audience and providing value in everything that you do.
Yeah, and that's through the authenticity and the honesty in what you do, I suppose. That's how that comes through. A big part of what you do now is around fragrance. That's become a real specific niche of yours. was that fragrance obsession always there, or is that something that's developed over time?
It's developed. And I think it's developed when I've become more confident and comfortable. I always saw fragrance as like art or like wine. It felt like it was fairly inaccessible and really only to a certain group who had the language. And I, like everyone listening, love fragrance, and I love the feeling and the memory that's attached to fragrance, but I didn't feel like I could talk about it because I was obsessing over, getting the notes right and reading a press release. And when I stopped worrying about that and really just connected with that emotion and how I felt with something, I then allowed myself to enjoy it. So yeah, I feel like with all of this, it was never a case of, it was like a real passion, and I eat, sleep and breathe all of this and grooming and fragrance. It was something I really enjoyed doing, but I think the process of creating is something that I feel passionately about. That's the passion, is the creation, and the subject matter is important to me and I really love it, but it's the storytelling that goes with it that really sort of drives me.
Yeah, and so you can apply that to any of your interests, whether it be grooming, style, fragrance. It's about creating an organic story for people to enjoy.
Yeah, and ensuring that an audience feels like they can connect, and that it gives them something, and it makes it less about me. And I suppose, kind of connecting back to the question about TV, the one thing I think I have done, maybe versus other influencers, inverted commas, or vloggers or bloggers back in the day, was I never really made myself the central character. I don't share my personal life. I don't really make it about me. I'm just purely the vehicle to connect something. And it's the reason why I did a barbering course back in 2017, when I was doing a lot of hair content, because I wanted to understand the language, and I wanted to understand cuts, and I wanted to be able to chat to a barber and take those skills and those words and make it in a way that the audience could understand. So yeah, in the whole of this process, I just kind of see myself as, I suppose, a reporter or the vehicle for that story.
Yeah, and I think this is a mistake that a lot of, I would say, influencers make now, which is, I think, in the fragrance space, we've got loads of fragrance content creators talking about fragrance. And I think the more people talking about it, the better. I don't think you have to have the knowledge. There's no right or wrong. And I think, like you say, once you learn that, you're kind of free. I think a lot of the time people get stuck on almost kind of, you're not really promoting fragrance in a way, you're just promoting the lifestyle of an influencer, about being, look at how glamorous it is, look at how I get to go to loads of parties, look at how much I get sent for free. And I feel actually, if you're centering yourself in that, but we need the stuff to talk about it, don't we? We need to talk about it, but it's actually not about that. If you want to inspire a conversation with people, you have to have something to say. It can't just be, look at me, which I think is the mistake a lot of people make.
Yeah, you've got to have an opinion, and you can't shy away from an opinion, and you also just can't be a mouthpiece for a brand. Some of the biggest growth I've ever seen online is through me saying no to something, or me saying that I didn't like something. And I know a lot of people in this space won't do that, or they'll think, oh, if something's not good, I just won't talk about it. I don't think that's our job. People are coming to you because they trust you and they trust your opinion, and they align themselves with the things that you like. So if you say, if everything's always very positive, then how do you actually know what is good? I think you need to have those benchmarks of saying, actually, this wasn't for me. I mean, one thing I would say on that, I don't dismiss things, but I will say, if you like X, you'll like Y. If you like this, you will love that. But again, I think it's really important to have an opinion and to kind of stick to that.
Yeah, and it's difficult with fragrance, isn't it? Because it's so subjective that, just because you don't like it doesn't mean someone else won't. But I think you can talk about when something kind of fails to meet the quality you expect. I think consumers have a right to know that, don't they? But
an audience will come to understand you and your personality and your tastes. So, for me, like, I love a leather fragrance, or I love a rose. Things which might be slightly more commercial, or say ozonic, I'm not so into. But that then has helped to grow an audience who have a similar taste to me. So if you're just liking everything, then you kind of are liking nothing.
And I think a lot of listeners will know you for probably one of your most iconic pieces of content is your street interviews that you do around style and also around fragrance,
Yes.
where you'll very typically ask men on the streets, what fragrances.
Do you have a favorite fragrance?
Yeah, do you have a favorite fragrance and
Yes.
what fragrances you're wearing? Which, where did the idea for that series come from?
That definitely came from the TV side. My favorite thing about doing what I do is talking to people. And I actually find it the easiest. There is little planning that goes into it. I work with an amazing guy called Adam, and we've worked together for 8, maybe 9 years now. And we're in such a flow of working together, and we have a really great dynamic in that we kind of know where things are going before we've edited it. And this series has kind of been a combination of us working together. But I'd always wanted to kind of be out and talking to people and providing, like, showing this world, and especially a lot of it shot in London, and having these beautiful visuals and being able to understand the time of year that is by what people are wearing and the sky and the fragrances people are picking. But I shot my first one in April 2017. And this was ahead of, not to say I was the first one doing it, but this was ahead of the Carnaby Street days that are now, where they're totally packed and you can't walk down. I shot my first street styled with a woman actually called Rebecca Spencer, who is an amazing photographer. And I'd worked with her on some of the sort of street style shots I did when I was trying a bit of everything and doing some fashion, inverted commas, influencing. And she just had this little Osmo, and I said, let's go out and let's do this. And we shot this piece, and I just really loved it because it felt, as live. You didn't know what people were going to say. I actually liked when people were like, no, I'm not talking to you. Like, it gave me the sort of the motivation to just keep going. And I like the performance element of it. And I like trying to understand other people and understand what makes them comfortable and mirroring them in a way that we can have a really good conversation. So yeah, I started it called Street Styled, and it was all about what people are wearing. And then I would say about 3 years ago, I thought, well, how do we develop this, and how do we move that on, and how do we take a format that has done well, and also commercially, I get sponsors within that, and everything is always disclosed. But I thought, well, how does that develop? And I thought, well, the fragrances are doing really well. Can we do it as a bolt-on? So I filmed the usual, tell me about your outfit, and then afterwards I would do an actual pause, and then I would say, do you have a favorite fragrance? Which actually gave us then like almost 3 bits of content. We had singles that could be used as shorts. We had long form, which would go on YouTube, and then we would clip things that could then go just as those fragrances. And those things have really kind of exploded. And the word viral gets used quite a lot, but a lot of them have gone viral, which is great. And it's really helped to sort of build an audience.
Yeah, I think I can see the appeal for people watching it, because you can learn a lot about somebody through the fragrance they're wearing. And I suppose you get a really unique insight into what fragrances men are really wearing, because I think we have like an idea of what brands tell us people are wearing. So what are men wearing? What do they tell you that they're wearing? How varied is it?
It's a really good question. And I mean, the people I approach, there's always a filter. And the filter is, do they look like they have a point of view? And you can see that point of view through the way that someone walks. Are they walking with confidence? Do they have their head up? Or do they have a point of view in their fashion? Do they have a sort of quirky sense of style, or are they very traditional? And I definitely go for people. I mean, it's a visual medium. People have to not necessarily look good, but they've got to have something about them in order to hold an interest of a viewer. So I definitely approach people that have a point of view. And so the fragrances, and I keep a spreadsheet of all the fragrances and how often they're mentioned, which then gives me an end of year wrap up that we film, almost like a big sort of countdown at the end of the year. And it is quite interesting to see the things that people choose. I mean, some of the most popular are Hermes, Tour de Hermes, the replica fragrances by the Fireplace Jazz Club. But over the past year or so, there's a lot more niche and seriously niche fragrances that have been popping up. And I never pretend that I know what something is unless I actually know what it is. And I love learning about what these brands are. And a lot of fragrances that people say they picked up in Dubai or they saw other influencers promoting. And so there's a lot of these sort of big power fragrances, the awful beast mode fragrances, or the sort of the very flashy fragrances. But there is a much like fashion and much like society, there is a divide in these sort of more artisan fragrances versus this sort of commercial ones. So the trend is now in choice, I would say, and people who you might at one point not have expected to have a big flashy expensive fragrance now do. And the language, that's probably actually the biggest thing I've learned in this series, is that people have the language around fragrance and they understand it in a far greater way, which is really nice and it's really exciting.
Yeah, that's really, really encouraging, because we keep saying fragrance is having a moment, but it's really great to see that that's translating into people having a greater understanding about it as a product. What I like about the videos is when you'll have someone and they pick something really surprising. So that someone will look a certain way, have a certain sense of style, and then they might pick, a really popular fragrance that you're not expecting, or a really kind of hidden gem
like
type
off
fragrance.
The wall, yeah.
Oh yeah, something completely off the wall. What kind of answers surprise you?
Yeah, I love when guys say that they wear a fragrance which is traditionally marketed towards women. I find that really refreshing because, as we know, fragrance is scented liquid with a whole lot of marketing around it. And it's lovely when someone says, I'm wearing Parfums de Marly de Lena, and, or they're wearing something like Chloe, or, I've had a few of these and it kind of makes me kind of sit up, and it's not all, one type of guy. It's guys who are stood there with their girlfriends, or guys who are dressed in suits. So, and it's just like, it does make you think. And I find that really refreshing, because that's really how it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. The niche market has just moved that needle so much that people aren't always thinking about gender. I think Delena is Snoop Dogg's favourite fragrance, which I find fascinating. Yeah, apparently he wears that, which is completely unexpected, I would say. What I love about the series and a lot of the work that you've done, I think about like the makeover videos you've done as well in the past, is that you really position fragrance as a central part of a man's style at the same level as his fashion. It feels like you're making it more of an essential accessory. And I think it comes across that men are much more conscious of their scent choices now through those discussions you're having. Would you agree that it's something men think about a lot more?
Definitely. I feel like fragrance is now in a similar world as a watch is. People see that as like the ultimate accessory, and people will look at things differently. Some see it as a calling card or a status symbol that you're wearing X fragrance, and people are like, oh, he knows his stuff. Or people also like it as something which is really obscure, because it shows that they're kind of slightly different. But people are definitely, looking at fragrance in a different way, and sort of seeing the trends in people now having fragrance wardrobes. I think the days of having there are fragrances that we all have that we always gravitate back to, but having a fragrance wardrobe for different times of day or different times of the year, or just a feeling by yourself, I think is something that so many men are doing now. And it's actually, for my own brand, I've called them invisible accessories, trademarked. And it's exactly that, it's the final accessory, and it can completely change everything.
Yeah, it's costume in a way. You can spray on a fragrance and say, this is who I want to be today. And it's dressing up.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. A few moments ago, you talked about performance as well, that men are wanting performance on their fragrances. One thing I've noticed that's really being taken to the extreme now, in that I had 2 fragrance launches come through where they're promising a certain amount of longevity on the box. So there was a Dolce & Gabbana one, which I think said had like 16 hours of longevity. And then an Azaro one was like saying 24 hours of longevity. And it's almost like, right, this is almost like a skincare product now, where we have a kind of scientific claim around
it's like a mascara,
performance.
All day long wear. Yeah. Cry through it, it's still going to be there. Yeah.
You will still smell of the one for men by Dolce & Gabbana. So
yeah, I do think, I did a video on, it was very TikTok-y, and it was fragrance terms I hate the most. And it was this sort of like beast mode, nuclear. I do think we'll go back. I think there's something so lovely in having something that just sits so close to you, and it's just for yourself or whoever you choose to have a nuzzle, or just like actually topping something up. It doesn't need to last forever.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a trend that will end, and it's cyclical. I think we had it in the 80s where everything was so strong, so excessive, and the 90s were all super clean. And I think we'll go back to that. I think there is a flip side to it as well. You know, we all want performance. We're spending a lot of money on fragrance, so we want it to last. But I don't want to have to designate a particular item of clothing to be only worn with a particular fragrance because it's going to smell like it until the end of time. I think it's a bit of a tough balance, isn't it? I think the point you just made around your video is actually really interesting, the one you made around your fragrance terms, because a lot of what you do is really positive. You know, you're uplifting men, you're, you know, making them feel good, you're helping them. But one thing I know about you, Robin, is that you also won't tolerate any nonsense. So what kind of perfume nonsense gets you going? Because you always, like you say, you always, it's important to have an opinion, so you're not afraid to put that across.
I mean, the nonsense that really gets under my skin is when people just don't treat other people well. And the sort of the online world is like the wild, wild west, especially on TikTok. And so, you know, you've got people discussing things and people like really going for people. I mean, that's a sort of topic in itself that I don't really stand for. The other thing, I suppose, is I think when people are using AI too much in scripts, I mean, I've kind of come off the question, but I think it's really obvious. I think AI can be a wonderful tool to enhance, but I think when we're talking about emotion and we're talking about connecting with an audience and with a product, I think it's so important to have that sort of texture that I don't think AI can really achieve. So I think, and I think that is a problem that kind of comes with people not feeling comfortable again in terms of fragrance. I think finding your own language is so important, and once you have that, you can kind of say whatever you want.
The AI thing is really interesting because I think we've sort of moved, especially now with TikTok, away from Instagram, which was always about being polished and, you know, you had to show the best of yourself. Whereas I think TikTok, you can be a little bit more rough and
Scrappy.
ready, you know. Yeah, I think so. And people really want authenticity, and I think they can smell when you are not speaking in your own voice. I think they can sense it. So lastly, you pivoted away from being someone who just talks about fragrance to actually launching your very own line of fragrances under your brand Anforh. What inspired you to do that?
So I had launched a hair product in 2023, and that was my first product, a texture volume spray. And that really came off the back of me talking about hair products for years and not finding a product that would thicken my hair and texturize it. So I thought I'll create it. And I, over the space of 3 years, had compiled a questionnaire and a survey of 55,000 respondents who each answered 9 questions. So these are uniques. And within that, I asked about different products. I asked about scent. I asked about price point. So I had all this data. And so I launched the first hair product. And then with the growth of the fragrance content and the growth of my love for fragrance, I thought it's another opportunity and it's another sort of way that I can stay fresh. I think, you know, in any job that you do, it comes to a point that you're like, well, what's next? And I think if I was in a traditional job, I would have looked for a new job. I think you can become, it's great when you know what you're doing, but you want to stay fresh and you want to like challenge yourself. So fragrance seemed like the obvious thing to do. There are so many great fragrances out there. And so could I have just left it? Yeah, absolutely. But I wanted to be involved in a process and I wanted to create a brand because it excites me. And I love all the different parts to it. So yeah, I decided to launch Anforh. So I launched 3 fragrances, which are there, the 3 here. Air, Kissed and Sown. It was really important for me as someone who lives in Edinburgh for this first collection to work with as many different people in Scotland as possible. So I spoke to various perfumers. I wanted to have someone who kind of had similar references to me. So I found a perfumer called Clara Wheel, who is a self-taught perfumer or scent designer who's based in Glasgow. We were born in the same month or the same year, had the same cultural references, and so just like had a lot of silly chats. And I really liked it. And she spoke about scent in terms of texture and tone and architecture, and that's kind of like how my brain works. And it also made sense to what is predominantly a male audience, which I have. I mean, with fragrance, it has kind of grown. And so, yeah, we worked together for these 3 fragrances, and I'm really happy with them.
Yeah, they're really, really, truly great fragrances. And
Thank you.
Was that just not the whole thing, was it not just terrifying? After being someone who's been so vocal about fragrances, to go out and then do it yourself, were you scared or?
No, I always tell myself that a sort of a stress or a fear or any of that is the same as excitement. I kind of fuck with my own mind and just like, this is good. That when I launched the first hair product, that was terrifying because I felt so isolated and I had no idea what I was doing. I remember the 3 weekends before I launched it, I cried every Sunday. And I was so overwhelmed and I just cried and walked and then was like, okay, I'm back, and just like snapped out of it. With the fragrances, I'm a lot more relaxed. It's like, we're creating beautiful things. I'm not saving lives. I'm like creating nice to have things. So yeah, I'm more relaxed about it. But there are still things that I'm trying to get sorted. And you've got to go through all the various processes of, like, I'm looking over here, part of my studio is basically just storage of boxes. So, sourcing bottles, bottles, doing all the IFRA stuff, the very important stuff, all the regulatory stuff, and getting it set up on the site. And I'm doing that all myself. But again, I love it. And actually, I like having that pressure. I need to grow the team, and I'm currently trying to do that. So yeah, I think did it stress me or no, it excited me, and it still does.
And it sounds like you had such a really good working relationship with Clara. The language was already there, which I think is so important, being able to, when you're working directly with that and evaluate it in between, to be able to just to say exactly what you want and articulate it and her understand.
Totally.
What was that? Can you talk us a bit through that development process of those 3 fragrances, how long it took and what was that like?
Yeah. So for every product I've had, I've been very clear in a brief. Like yourself, I've tried hundreds of thousands of products. So I'm really clear in, I like this from this and I like this from this, and it's really important that we use this. And ultimately, I'm thinking about a feeling. So like the hair products, I wanted people to feel confident. I wanted them to have thicker and fuller hair. With the fragrances, I had 3 different fragrances for 3 different moods, essentially. So the first one, Air, which is a very open, energetic scent, took inspiration from where I grew up in the Northeast Coast. So it was about something which gave you energy, walking up onto this beautiful beach and having the wind just absolutely blasting you. So the feeling there was about something which was very accessible, a sort of a daytime wear, something that you just felt good with. And so when I was thinking about these fragrances in terms of a brief, I was using images. I had multiple Pinterest boards. I had color, I had texture. And then my first meeting with Clara face to face, we went through just various notes, almost like the pillars of the fragrance. And it was a case of me smelling and saying, I like that, but that's not quite right. I think maybe that could work. That's got the right sort of color. That could work with this. And so we kind of narrowed things down. And then from there, Clara came up with samples. We did 3 rounds, and some that just weren't right, and some which we like actually both had a laugh about, and then others that I was like, yes, this is it. And so there's quite a lot of back and forth, but she understood what I wanted. I was very clear on what I wanted. I make sure that the feedback is super tight. And then we did, I think, up to 3. The third fragrance called Sorn, which is a sort of very dark, smoky. You called it a sex dungeon fragrance.
Yeah, an orgy in a whiskey distillery.
Whiskey distillery, gorgeous. Yeah. It's very that. But we got to that one very quickly. And when that was nailed, I was like, this is great. The second fragrance, Kissed, was always in my head going to be my least favorite, because it's a very it's a sandalwood fragrance, like top, heart and base. It's got benzoin. It's kind of got this sort of well-read book, cashmere jumper sort of vibe, and I thought I wasn't gonna like that, but actually it's the one I've now worn the most. But the idea of who each of these guys or wearers were going to be was so important. So we kind of just, if we had that hook, it worked. I was always very clear in who these were serving.
And was it always really important for you to root them entirely into Scotland? Because the names are using Scots words. You worked with a Scottish perfumer. Did you want it to kind of be a tribute to Scotland?
It gave me a reason to do it. I remember someone saying about someone creating a fragrance. When I first started, and I mean, they didn't know I was doing this, and they were like, I mean, she's now launching a fragrance, and what's the point? And there's so many great fragrances out there. And I just thought, okay, well, this is what I'm going to come up against. And I moved back to Scotland 3 years ago. I'd lived in London for 13 years. And when I moved back, I actually realized how important where I grew up was to me, and how unique it was, and how beautiful it was, and how, all these different senses that I had and memories, and it made it easier. I had all these ideas and all these images that could be beautiful. Also, commercially, it makes sense. I've got a massive US audience. They love all of this, and I can talk really authentically, and I can talk from memory. And so yeah, it gave a real reason to do this.
Yeah, and I think they came out so beautifully. I'd quite like to smell them.
Yeah, should I grab some off my shelf?
Yeah, let's do it together. Okay, let's start with Air. This is kind of the lightest and the one I would say is most accessible. Would you agree?
Yeah, that was the reason. I wanted an elevated everyday.
And this is just a really, really beautiful vetiver. And the inspiration for this is all about being in the outdoors.
It's coastal. Yeah. It's coastal, and it's about walking up onto a beach and then down. And Air comes from a word which means coastal inlet, and basically like a really rocky coastal path.
Yeah, this one's so beautiful because vetiver has a natural kind of grapefruit facet, and I feel like that comes across. You get that lovely sort of citrusy, but it's mineral as well. Like it's almost like damp stones. There's something rocky about it and rugged.
And there's mandarin in here, so it makes things more accessible. Again, it was when I spoke to Clara about the notes, I actually personally didn't want to get bogged down in the notes because for me, it's feeling. I really wanted something which felt like a sort of next step from something which was commercial, so more niche, but in a world which could be very accessible. So the citruses were important, but it was the vetiver that I really wanted. And, there were various fragrances that I kind of thought about. One of them, Vetiver Extraordinaire, Frederic Malle, like I loved, but I thought, well, how do we make that, again, slightly more accessible and something which is really super wearable? And I love this. It's like, actually, I wore this again last week. I always have little vials with me, and I just forgot how much I really love this. It's easy.
It is. It's like going outside and just inhaling a deep breath of cool air. That's how it feels.
Yeah.
And I think what you've described there about having the idea of creating something that is accessible niche, but also like elevated mainstream is a really hard balance to hit right, I think, because it's almost sort of challenging what people expect a little bit, but not pushing it too far.
It's how I shop, I've created products that I would personally use, and that I love. And, this Air is the cheapest of the lot. It's a 30ml and it's £68. So, when you scale that, it'll sort of move slightly, but it's not going to completely break the bank. No, it's not super cheap, but it's a lovely way to try, and it's a great way to have a fragrance wardrobe.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels very special. Now, the next one is Kissed, which is my favourite. This was in my top 10 of
thank you.
fragrance launches last year.
You've given Kissed a lot of love, so thank you.
I have, because I think when I get excited when I smell something and I think I've not smelled this before. So obviously with Air, I've not smelled that exact fragrance before, but I've smelled things in similar spaces.
In the world. Yeah.
I put this on the strip the first time I sprayed it, and I was like, I can't quite place it, and that's exciting to me to think I don't know this. And I think it's actually a very innovative fragrance because
it's really good.
It's really, really good. It's like woody, but also a little bit spicy and warm, but also cold. But for me, it's so textured, and I think of wool when I smell it. It's like old. It's kind of almost like unprocessed wool. It could be a woolen jumper, but it's almost, wool straight from the sheep almost.
And Kissed means a cask that you would keep, jumpers and things in and treasures, and it was about that feeling of comfort. And I love that there's just like this dash of sweetness. And when I spoke to Clara about this, there was this sort of the chat around, vanilla, and do we do vanilla, and is vanilla right? And then, we've got benzoin in this, and it makes so much sense because it doesn't feel sugary, but it just feels like that sweetness is the warmth.
Yeah, it's like a resinous sweetness.
Yeah. I wanted, again, the sort of the Pinterest board for this was about this kind of like cool guy. And I had all these pictures of kitchens, like really high end hipster kitchens. And it just gave me this feeling of like Sunday warmth. And, he's in the kitchen with his partner, and there's like the hipster dog around them with a little jacket on. And it's like the glass of red wine. And like, it just felt like pure comfort. And I feel like this has nailed it.
Yeah. This guy's definitely got an Arga. He's got an Arga in there.
I quite like this guy.
Yeah. No, he would be able to provide for us. He would
call me up.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's like stylish without. It's the kind of guy that's very stylish without thinking about it. He's just wears what he wears, and
he's good.
He's very good. We like.
He's
him
a nice guy.
Lot.
We like him a lot.
We like him a lot. He's very nice. He's rugged. It's good. Very cozy. And then we have Saw, which is just pornographic. It's filth. It's absolutely filth.
Yeah.
And this is very peaty, whiskey, malty.
Oakwood. Yeah. Spicy opening, birch tar. Yeah. Peppery. Should I tell you the story behind this one?
Yes, please do.
The full story I'll tell you when we go for dinner.
Okay. I look forward to that.
But there's certain, like, I used to be a lot of fun. These days I don't, and I sit in an office.
You are still a lot of fun, I will say. I won't let you say you're not fun, but you used to be an absolute menace. Can we say that?
I was a menace and a mess, and I loved it, and I lived for it. In my 20s, oh my God, like the parties I have. I no longer drink. I live a different life. But yeah, back in the day, I'll give you some of the stories. I mean, a book could be made out of this. But this just reminds me of some of those amazing nights that I would never change. It's filthy. It's like, just let your fragrance take the wheel and just do with me as you will. It's like
yeah, it is.
But the connection back to Scotland was very much my Glasgow days. But also when I was growing up, so my dad's an engineer. And he used to do a lot of work on distilleries, and we would drive around the Speyside, which is basically whiskey capital of the world. And the smell that you'd get in the air of the maltings was incredible. And growing up with that around me, I always took it for granted. And then you leave and you think, oh, that was a really unusual smell. And so I love that really malty, peaty, really heavy back of your throat sort of scent. And that's exactly what that gave me. But when we were creating this, Clara actually, the reference was sort of faded glamour. And it was about the end of the night where you started looking incredible. And by the end of the night, you're still kind of incredible, but everything's just gone a little, But I didn't want this sort of like in the gutter vibe. But one of the fragrances that she created for the sample actually smelled like an ashtray. And it was incredible, but I just thought, we can't do this. But you've still got this sort of, you might have like lipstick on the collar or a bottle of champagne like lying in the bed. It's that vibe.
I love it.
Or in a sex dungeon.
Or if you turned a whiskey distillery into a cruising ground, which
into a cruising ground,
I'm sure happens. It's not too heavy though. That's what I quite like about it. There is a lightness in there. I mean, I say that loosely.
Is there?
Because, there's a spaciousness maybe for me when I wear it on skin. It packs a punch.
Yeah,
but it's not dense, I suppose, is what I want to say.
And there's a floral quality to this too. It's fleur de cuir, so you've got this leathery rose, and that's also what I wanted. I kind of wanted that sort of flower in decline. She was once gorgeous, and now she's still gorgeous, but she's had a big night. And it is that. But with this fragrance, and I don't want everyone to love all these. That's not why I made these. And again, when I first launched my first hair product, I had a meeting with a PR who I'd worked with on one of their brands. And I'd said to her, I was like, oh, this product's not for everyone. And she said, no, stop. You never say that. This product is for everyone. I was like, but it's not. And when I've spoken about other brands and other products, I've always said, this is not for everyone. So why would I do that with my own fragrance? That's why I've got 3. And I wanted something for everyone. Some people have bought all 3 fragrances as a fragrance wardrobe, and it's incredible. But some people are really, just loving one. And that's why I have a discovery set.
Absolutely. Which I highly recommend. So
thank you.
So you can get to know all of them. They are, I have to say, when there's been 2 times in my life where someone I know has launched a range of fragrances. And you have this thing when they get sent to you and you go, right, I just want to love them. I want to love them.
Yeah.
And the moment of relief when you smell them and you go, oh, do you know what?
Yeah, they're not shit.
They're not shit. They're actually fantastic. And I wear them all individually quite regularly. I say the one I would wear the least is Air, probably.
Yeah,
I would go for Kissed and Sawn. When I'm feeling like I want to be a menace, then obviously I go for Sawn. But I wear Kissed all the time. And you've done such a fantastic job with them, and you're right. They have distinct characters, distinct personalities. You're not gonna like all 3 of them, possibly, but that's fine. It's okay.
That's great.
It's great. If you liked all of them, there's probably something wrong with it. It's probably not unique enough, I would say.
No, exactly.
So will there be more?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, maybe that's something I should hold back. No, definitely. I love the creation and the process, and that's really what drives me. And the fragrance and hair products are a huge part of that. But it's working with amazing people that I truly love, and seeing someone else's passion come to life and again, this is the TV background. As a digital producer, I was pulling in all these different things from different people on the commercial side and the team and the crew. And that's what I'm doing now, but just with my own brand. And yeah, that excites me. So most definitely there will be more.
Okay. So this is a watch this space for sure.
Yeah. How long that will take, who knows? All it takes is money.
It takes money and time. That's
money,
the kind of recipe.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I, for one, will be really excited to see what you come up with in the future. I think what you do is really great, and I encourage anyone who's listening to go out and try the fragrances. You will be at Barnes Fragrance Fair, so I will be at Barnes
Fragrance Fair. Yeah, and I should say, I love what you do, so this is great.
Oh,
I think you're very good. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you. I was waiting. It took you 45 minutes, but we got there.
45 minutes. Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah. Normally guests say that when they first come on.
I know. Right. Yeah. I thought I'll talk about myself for 45 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's your episode, so it's
my episode.
Thank you, Robin. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I will see you soon for dinner.
You will indeed. Where's Soren?
I hope you enjoy getting to know Robin a little bit better. He's someone I really admire because he has such a distinct idea about what he wants to achieve, and he does it in a way that is without ego. In fact, it's the opposite. Everything's warm, inviting, and accessible, which isn't the case for many people who are creating content at his level, I have to say. Now, I'm sure you're itching to try the Anforh fragrances after those descriptions, and you can find out more about the brand on their website, anforh.com. That's ANFORH.com. I highly recommend the Discovery Kit, which is £24 and gives you the opportunity to wear each of the fragrances. My favourite is Kissed, as I said during the episode, but I am also partial to a bit of Sawn for those days when I'm feeling like I want to be a menace. You can follow Robin on his various channels at Man for Himself. I'll put all of that info in the show notes for you. And as a reminder, Robin will be at Barnes Fragrance Fair. He will be there wearing 2 hats. Firstly, with Anforh, the brand. So if you're going, you can explore and try all of the fragrances and discover them. But he will also be on a panel talk hosted by Hayden Williams, all about scent and style. So I believe tickets are still available for that, and head to barnesfragrancefair.com if you want to find out more. That's it for this week. I will be back next week with another exciting new episode. I'll give you a bit of a clue about who I'll be talking to. The title of that episode is Sweaty Ballsacks. I'll leave you to figure out who my guest is. The answer may surprise you. A massive thank you to Carium, our sponsor for this episode. I'm all about making fragrance and fragrance discovery more accessible, and Carium's innovative AI solution, the Scent Sommelier, offers an entirely new way to explore fragrance by translating scent into language. You can find out more at www.carium.com. As usual, I will hand over to our guests to tell us the fragrance they have an emotional connection with. After all, fragrance is an emotional art form. If you want to follow me on Instagram, you can at Making Sense Make Sense. I'm also on TikTok at Making Sense Make Sense. I'm just under 10,000 followers, so if you want to follow me there, why not, hey? But for now, over to Robin for the very last word. I'll see you next week.
A fragrance I have an emotional connection with is Clinique Happy from it on a family holiday when I was 16. And it was times when I was storing body spray and Signia. And we bought it for my dad. My dad doesn't do anything in terms of grooming or fragrance. So he kept it in his bathroom cupboard upstairs. And every morning before school, I would sneak up and have a spritz of it. And actually, it was me who finished that bottle. And then I went on to buy more of it. But it was kind of like my gateway fragrance.